Let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about the stock market. Yeah, specifically the vinyl stock market. Yes, it is a deal. It is a thing. You can see it. Prices go up, prices go down. You never know. You can try to bet on some of it, hope, man, this is going to go up, and suddenly it doesn't, or maybe it does, goes down. You don't care. A lot of folks, you know what? It doesn't matter. You don't buy it for value. You buy the records because it's just what you want and it's what you want to listen to. But many people buy it for value. A lot of the businesses, they definitely will buy or think about value. How can I make more money? Because they're in business, and that's how you stay in business. You make more money. And sometimes it's betting on something. Oftentimes it's betting on someone's going to die. I mean, that really is what can spike up the vinyl stock market. Someone dies. When Prince died, his sales went up 40,000%. Think about that, 40,000%. Now, maybe it wasn't selling anything. I don't know. But they skyrocketed. And so did the prices. It's the vinyl stock market. So I want to talk about a few of these things because I think it's kind of interesting. It all started, I began thinking about this video quite a while back. We're talking over a year ago. I just haven't got around to it. I've started twice, and I'm not doing it because, whatever. But I was in Radio Wasteland when I was in Midland, Michigan, and Kenny Rogers had died. And an older couple comes in and goes, "Do you have any Kenny Rogers?" They didn't collect records or anything, but it was a nostalgia thing, and they wanted Kenny Rogers. And you know what? They would have paid whatever. I mean, they were in the dollar bin. I think that's where Jim sent them. But the fact is, they would have paid more for it because they wanted something to remember. Something, it's Kenny Rogers, and we really liked him, and it got them to come into a record store. Death. But it affected the sales. So let's talk about a few things. I think the first is if there is a pre-existing demand for that individual artist or band, maybe they have like a big reputation, and it's a widely collected artist, and obviously critically acclaimed before they died. That, when they pass, can really affect sales and can skyrocket prices up. I'm going to a couple examples. And we have here Tom Petty. You could buy Tom Petty easy. His albums were everywhere. Nothing hard to find. When he died, though, the demand for them greatly increased. People wanted them. Now, again, you got to look at OGs tend to increase, or if they're high fidelity, they're going to go up a lot more than some reissues. But the fact is, when he passed, demand for his records shot up. And when demand shoots up, price goes up. Simple economics, supply and demand, right? So we're buying more, so there'll be less supply, but there's more demand. You're going to charge more. So, classic example. Another classic example of that, though, is Van Halen, when Eddie Van Halen died. Oftentimes, when I think about this whole vinyl stock market, you think about groups, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I mean, individual artists, and not so much groups, because groups are harder. You got a bunch of different people in there. But in Van Halen, it was Eddie's group. He was the catalyst. He was the major person of that group. And when he passed away, suddenly people were scooping up Van Halen albums. And when they're buying them up, that price is going up. So just, there was great demand for both Tom Petty and Van Halen beforehand. So there was this strong pre-existing demand, and they had a great reputation, and they were both critically acclaimed. It's just that when they passed, and there was plenty of product, but when they passed, people suddenly thought, man, I better get that. I need to get that. And so they grabbed it. The next one, though, is different. The artist, if they pass, the artist has there's only a finite supply. It's not like Petty, where there's millions of certain albums, or Van Halen. But here's more of a finite supply of their work. And so it's more limited, which can potentially increase its value and its scarcity. I think a great example of that is when Lux Interior died from the cramps. There's a finite supply of this. It wasn't like there's millions and millions of copies out there of Cramps albums. But when Lux died, that was the end of the Cramps, and suddenly people were out there trying to grab it. Cramps prices jumped up. People wanted a piece of Cramps, or a piece of Lux. And so, they began to search and try to find that. And due to the scarcity, the prices really went up. And Cramps albums definitely, they cost a lot. They are not cheap out there. Even reissues cost a lot because it's a finite supply of it. They reissue it, but they don't reissue them like tons. So that's one. Another one, there was a lot, but yet there was still kind of a finite supply of it because it happened when the artist really hadn't been around that long. Nirvana. When he died, again, there was this rush for Nirvana albums. Prices jumped up. They only put out 4 albums? That was it. And so definitely a finite supply because the supply chain hadn't been filled up with reissue after reissue. Now a lot of reissues have happened. Obviously, when he passed, it was time, let's start reissuing this. But, the originals, whew, the stock market blew apart. Up they went, and we're talking Nirvana reissues, triple digit easy. Now, it's in the 90s, so there was less made. But Kurt Cobain, his passing, that was it. And so thus they could command more money. So just another great, to me, an example, finite supply. Another one would be media attention. Say media attention, there's the funeral effect going on, media coverage of the dead, really increased public interest. Oh, what's going on? And you just see them on TV over and over, and they're talking about this. And that can create demand. Classic example, Michael Jackson. You could use Kurt Cobain too, but this one, by far. Now, there was other things about his personal life that was all out there. I mean, he was everywhere. But it's a case where he has billions of albums out there, and everyone was scooping them up. And the stuff goes for money now. I mean, like Thriller and all that. It's like, wow, that really kind of jumped in price. And there's millions of them. But there was so much around this. So it's that the funeral effect, shall we say, and just the amount of media attention that shot up prices for Michael Jackson. Another one is estate management. So estate management, it's how does that estate how are they going to handle the sales and of this artist? Is it going to be hard to release anything? Some estates are very tight and they really keep a good control on it, which again increases the price of the product. Some states, they don't care, they just start releasing it. But I think one where you think of really, strong, big control on the estate, Prince. And he passed. His albums began to skyrocket up. But, the amount that comes out, it's limited. Decisions are made. What's going to come out? What are we going to do? The estate really has a tight control on this. Hendrix, that estate, they did. I believe Kurt Cobain, of course, there's a lot of arguing and that going on there. But this is just a great example of estate management and how they're going to handle the releasing of Prince's material. Now Prince had so much in the vaults and that, and they just slowly feed it out there. You know what? Just keeps this state alive. It keeps things going. So that's a good example. I think the final one I want to talk about, number 5, is nostalgia. I mentioned Kenny Rogers. These elderly people came in because they wanted Kenny Rogers. Nostalgia, typical dollar bin. And no doubt they would have paid more, and probably people did. I think a big one with nostalgia. And with nostalgia, prices don't always jump, but they can. When Johnny Cash died. Talk about a guy with a catalog, right? From the 50s on up into the 90s. And when he passed, there was a lot of people that just went out and bought Johnny Cash albums because of what he meant. I mean, he affected so many generations, and so people wanted to get something of his. Some of his product went up. Now, I don't know how much or whatever. Again, there was many reissues. His estate, they had put out a lot of product. The different record labels, they just keep reissuing it. But there was demand for it. It made a difference. Now, oftentimes, though, generally what happens if an artist dies, there's really there's no effect to it. They're unknown or a unestablished artist. And so not much happens unless down the line, years later, suddenly people discover this person and think, wow, this is something else. A classic example is when this person died, you could find these albums in bargain bins, in cutout sections because they didn't sell. But years later, good luck, triple digits. Nick Drake. He really was an unknown to most people. Unknown. He just couldn't get himself established. Nobody cared. And when he passed, you know what? Oh my God. Will someone take my Nick Drake album? Will someone buy it? And now, even reissues go for a lot more money. But originals, oh my God. But the stock market took a while on this one, but it surged. And it made a big difference. And so his death didn't affect it right away, but it affected it when people discovered it and suddenly began talking about it and saying, hey, my big influence was Nick Drake. It really made a difference, and now it's very expensive. So that's some examples. So now you're thinking about the future. You're going, hey, how can I ride the stock market? What can I do? Well, you got to start thinking about who's on the ropes, man. Well, I'd say Keith Richards, but we all know Keith Richards isn't going anywhere. He's going to be around for another 100 years. So let's just take Keith Richards completely out of the equation. The man's not dying. I think he's been pickled or something. But what will happen when Iggy Pop dies? For those of you that want to play the vinyl stock market, his stuff's not cheap already. But is it worth buying up more? Is it worth having it? If you're running a business, do you try to get some of this? Not necessarily always put it out, but start hoarding it. Now, he seems to be doing okay, but we don't know how people's health really are, do we? We don't. But Iggy Pop, I would say when he passes, his stuff's going to go up substantially. The big one. This is the one. If you want to save up, if you want to just buy some doubles or triples or whatever and then trade them in for credit or money at your local record store, I'd bet on Azie Osborne. Now, they reissue a lot of stuff, but fans go nuts for it. And he sells it and continues to sell it. To me, if you're betting on the vinyl stock market, I think it's like Kramer, on one of those news channels who does the stocks. It's like, you got to get this. You got to get this. This is going to go. You're crazy if you don't get it. This is what you got to have. It's going to go nuts. And you got to buy it now. So go out there. You got to find it. Get it. Yeah, It's that kind of thing. Now, I could be totally wrong, but due to the way his fans are, I would think that his product, everyone's going to want to scoop it up and go after it. And they may have it, but why not get some more? I think another good group that kind of falls into that, but this is a harder one. Guess. There's the fans have it all, but if they die, are they going to want more? Now, here's the issue, though. Look, if it's Gene Simmons, if he dies, will it go up, or will it be what's his bucket? I love God. Now I can't. Not Ace Frehley, not that. It's true, not Chris. Oh crap. No, I can't think of his name. Oh well, you know, Love God guy, or Tongue guy. Which one of them's going to send the Kiss records up? Which one's going to bother the people the most? Now they may be around for a while yet. You know, they've retired, right? But Kiss, I think that's a safe bet. Now, how about some? Could they or could they not? I don't know. Could it? Let's see. What would? Will Paul McCartney's stock go up? Will his vinyl prices surge when he dies? John Lennon, I think, seems to have a very, for fan base, but he died, ages ago, so decades ago. But what about McCartney? He has so much product out there. Will this just become a nostalgia and not really go up? Or will people really want to go out there and start trying to find it and figure it up? I don't know. Here's another interesting one. The Who. I don't think it'll matter when Roger Daltrey dies, personally. Sorry, Roger, if you're watching. Pete Townsend, I think it will matter. But this is a tough case because it's a group. It's a group of 4 individuals. I mean, Keith Moon's obviously gone. Wurzel's gone. Howard, I've just massacred his name. It's just Daltrey and Townsend. Will it go up? I don't know. It's hard to say. Here's another one. The Rolling Stones. Now, we've already decided Keith Richards will not die. Mick Jagger, he's going to die. It's going to happen. It is, and we've just, I think we need to accept that fact. But will Rolling Stones go up if Jagger or if Richards die? Or they just have so much product and people have it and they really don't care. There's no scarcity or anything like that involved with the product. I don't know. Here's another one I'm not sure about. Eric Clapton. Again, large body of work. You don't hear a lot about Clapton being God. Sorry, Kendall. But, people like him. But are they gaga over him? Or they just go, oh my God, I got to get it. I mean, people did come out and ask for Kenny Rogers. So you never know. When he passes, folks might be jumping, trying to get more of that back catalog. I need to get him. I need to remember him because he's been around and he has some great guitar playing and it could make a difference. Again, I think it's easier for, if it's a solo artist, for people to get that excited versus a group, or especially where you have two of the main people there. If one passes, does it make a difference? So I don't know. That's what stock market's about. You don't know. You just have, if you want to try to get something, you have to take a chance. You may get burned. And you may make it. Who knows? That's what stocks are about. That's what vinyl stocks are about. You don't know. But if you want to say, hey, I want to get some of this stuff, because I'm going to trade it in, when something happens and see if I can get more. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. I don't know. So that's my take on the vinyl stock market. Something totally different to think about. But death can be profitable. If you have the right stuff. Otherwise, maybe not so much. So, okay. Thanks for sitting through that. Feel free to comment. Feel free to give me your stock tips on what what groups to buy. I'm more than happy. I'm sure everyone else would enjoy to see your vinyl stock tips. So let's share them and decide. And maybe as a group, we could send prices skyrocketing just on our own by taking up some of that supply and making demand out of it. Okay? Fantastic. Thanks for hanging out as always. Everyone have a great day. Bye.